guys, so now we are going to go over the 4 main data types in Python. So first off, there's the string that we've already discussed, is anything with single or double quotes. So we could do var1, which is not a very descriptive variable name, unfortunately. You should usually try to be more descriptive with your variable names, but because we're just using this as a reference, this is fine for now. But we can set var1 equal to, this is a string, and now we can print var1. And just to make sure you guys know that we can use single quotes too, since I know we haven't been doing that a lot, I could also say this is also a string. And then print var2 as well. Now, if we run this, we get both of them. And as you can see, they're literally printed out the exact same. There's no difference between double quotes and single quotes, but I will say, if you want to use an apostrophe inside your string, like this is a string sentence, you want to use double quotes, or else if you use it inside a single quote string, it's gonna be messy, because yeah, as you can see here, this letter S is black, and if we run it, we are going to get an invalid syntax symbol because it thinks this quote is ending off the string, even if it actually isn't. So if we want to print the type of a variable, like the data type, all we do is do print type and then var1 or var2. It doesn't really matter. So as you can see here, it says class string. Now let's do the next data type, which is an integer. Now, we've also kind of discussed this in the last video, string concatenation part 2, but an integer is any whole number, negative or positive, without, I'm just going to specify since we've been working with a lot of strings, without these double quotes or single quotes. Now, an example of an integer would be something like int, but an integer could also be something like negative 723. Now, we can print out, of course, num1 and num2, and we can print the type of num2 as well, if we wanted a reference. So yeah, those are integers. They're helpful because they're typically the easiest to perform math with, which is a major use of Python. For example, the calculator company, Texas Instruments, their calculators usually run on Python. But that is also something we'll be talking a little more about later. For now, let's move on to the next kind of variable, which is, I'd describe it as a little bit of a spin-off of integers, but it's something called a float. So it's basically just any negative or positive decimal number, again, without double quotes or single quotes. So an example of a float would be 5.4, or num2, we could do negative 6.2. Now, floats, because Python isn't like as built around floats as it is for integers, sometimes when you do math problems with floats normally, you get some weird numbers, but that's something to look at later. For now, let's just print num1, we get 5.4, num2, we get negative 6.2. Also, I just want to reiterate that both for integers and floats, for positive integers and floats, you don't need to add that plus sign. As a matter of fact, if you do, you don't get any errors. But generally, you can just kind of leave it be, since it's not really looked at as a big deal. Now, if we were to print the type of a float variable, we would get class float. Now, finally, the last of the 4 main data types is something called a Boolean. Now, I don't know if this is a concept any of you guys are already familiar with, but to be honest, Booleans are a huge concept in not just Python, but any coding language, because they're super useful for things called loops, which we will also be talking about later. But a Boolean is just true or false. That's it. That's all it can be. So let's say I had a condition called is raining. Right now, where I am, it is not raining, so I can set that equal to false. And you see how this glows blue? It's a different shade of blue than the floats or the integers, but it's blue nonetheless, because if you use a capital F or a capital T for true, it should fill out as its own word. If you use a lowercase f, it doesn't register. So be careful. Use your capital Fs. But yeah, so now we have a variable called is raining, and we can set that to false, and then we can also set up a variable called is sunny, set that equal to true. Now we can print is raining, and we get false. We can print is sunny, and we get true. And finally, we can print the type of, let's just say, is raining, and we get class bool, short for Boolean. Now, these are the 4 main data types in Python. Remember, if you ever want to check the data type of any kind of variable, use the type function. And be careful, because like the string function we were discussing earlier, you need to add an extra pair of parentheses. So make sure you're closing off both the print parentheses and the type parentheses.